Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes for those keeping count. This is episode 347, and today we're going to talk about becoming limitless. And so I brought on Jim Ingersoll, who he's just an amazing person. And so I want everybody to pay attention. And Jim, thanks for being here, and this is going to be great.
It's awesome to be here with you today, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
You've been mentioned in certain circles, especially by Jeff Watson and some others that have been on the show, and I wanted to get you on here because you help so many people, and I've watched what Jeff has gotten from you, gone to your events, and it's just incredible.
Well, Boaz is a great book. Anybody who hasn't read that one needs to check out Jeff Watson. And he spoke at Deal Maker and did such an amazing job. Rob, I need to send you the link. Actually, I'll send it to anybody who reaches out today. If you want to hear Jeff Watson speak on Boaz, on communication and being clear in communication as a leader, just email me, jim@elitedealmakers.com, because it is that good. Like, we need to share that communication. It was awesome.
But let's just jump right in and talk about deal makers because I see these pictures everywhere, and
Yeah.
people are wearing these awesome deal maker shirts. And so when I initially started helping Jeff, I thought, what is deal makers? What's it about?
Right.
What can you experience going to these things?
You're asking me? Well, I think it's community-based success, and it comes back to something I really believe in, Rob, and that is that isolation is terminal. I think we all learned that and experienced that during COVID just 5 years ago. There
Hmm.
was so much isolation, and I really believe isolation is terminal. So I believe working in communities and collaborating and sharing success is where it's at for all entrepreneurs. If you're just going hard alone and you're a solo entrepreneur, you're going to struggle because people don't get us. Like, you need to be around people that get you, that understand that you're highly driven and you're success oriented. But at the same time, you can be extremely generous with your resources, your time, and other stuff. That goes back to adding value to your entire community. So it's team based success, and that's where it's all about.
Well, and for those that have listened to this podcast long enough, over the last 6 months, I came out with a book called Legacy, and what you do
Great book.
helps build that community, that legacy among all those entrepreneurs, and it gives them the foundation to go out there and be better.
Yeah, I really do, and that's a great book. If nobody's read that one, they need to read that one as well. I haven't read your newest Disney book, but I'm very intrigued by Disney, so I'm going to get to that one soon. They do an amazing job. So you just keep pumping out these books. You're keeping me very busy, which is awesome.
Well, in 2013, I published my very first book. And at the time, I had two companies. I had this one on Spock Media and my carpet cleaning business in Lancaster, PA.
Yeah.
And so I came out with this book called Share, all about social media, and it was the easiest social media book you ever read. And people are like, "Well, Rob, you're just a carpet cleaner. Why are you writing a book on social media?" But I knew that my time in carpet cleaning was limited, and I had already had plans in motion to sell that business to focus full time on consulting. And that book put me on the map. And anybody that's out there, you know, if you're whether you're just getting started, whether you've been in this business or whatever business you're in for a long time, try to get a book out there because it gives you
I
that
completely
authority and
agree
that
with that. Rob,
credibility.
I've written two books, but they were both a really long time ago. So there weren't people around to help me back then, like you help so many people now. But so it wasn't an easy process. They both took me a long time, but they both created amazing opportunities, and doors started to open after I
Mhm.
published.
Yeah.
And I'm forever grateful for those two books that I wrote way back when.
Yeah, and things have been, can't say easier, but there's a lot more tools available for people to
Yes.
use to get those books out there. And I've now worked on 60 plus books in 12 years, and I'm amazed at all the people that have come to me and said, hey, Rob, can you help me?
Right.
And if you looked at me back in high school, I'd be the last person to help you
Me
with
too.
grammar or
And
writing
me
or
too on that one. I
yeah.
probably would have been voted least likely to succeed.
But as we got older and I looked at, I think you've been married a little longer than I have. My wife and
Yeah.
I just celebrated 36 years. We
Congratulations.
have 6 kids, 6 grandkids, and for me, it's always been, as an entrepreneur, freedom. I wanted to be able to
Right.
do what I want to do when I want to do it and how I want to do it with the people involved with my
Yeah.
life. And I just couldn't deal with a typical job. And so you know, I think for you, this whole becoming limitless helps people understand that they can live a better life.
Yeah. Well, they can. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. I know Kim was on recently and she's heard me say this, but one of the things I like to say in my opening a deal maker is that I believe in you. And you people are surprised, but there's a lot of negative people in all of our lives. It isn't just the news that's negative. It's neighbors, in-laws, parents, brothers, sisters, could be a spouse that doesn't believe that you can leave your job and become a successful entrepreneur, a real estate investor, or whatever it is you're trying to do. But just the fact that somebody gets into a community and they begin to build relationships with people that really do believe in them.
Mhm.
And I really do believe people can be limitless. Like you can do it. Like you got to believe down in your gut you can do it, and you got to tune out all that negative energy.
Yeah.
And you may have to switch out some people in your life as well, because I really think Jim Rohn was right. He just said like you are the average of the 5 people you're hanging out with. Like that is timeless.
Right.
And they didn't teach me that in engineering school. I promise you that. Like they taught me lots and lots of calculus, Rob, but they didn't teach me anything about building relationships and building networks of people that can help me and community at
I
all.
I find that funny that, well, more ironic. I went to Penn State in '87 for engineering. It wasn't for me.
It's not
And,
easy.
my dad was an engineer for 40 some years
Oh, well,
and worked for an electric company and he'd be going, Rob, you got to do this, this, this. And I'm like,
yeah,
no.
yeah. No, it's not an easy degree. And I think the only way I made it through is I refused to quit, show up every day and push because I'm probably not smart enough to get through any other way. But you get through. But back to Limitless, I really think it starts with your mindset too. It's so important. Like your attitude, you wake up, and the way you wake up and the way you feel
Mhm.
going into every day, and just being around like-minded people that are success oriented. That rising tide lifts all of us. When I
Mhm.
go to Dealmaker, I get inspired. Like
Well, I get
I'm leading
inspired
the
every time
event, but it motivates me. Like
yeah.
I do my inner circle Zoom every week with my community, and every week on Zoom, like just being around other people inspires me and motivates me to keep rolling. People like Kim, who you had on a few weeks ago.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, everybody that I have on this show, I believe, has a unique superpower.
Yeah.
And there's been some people on the show that you know they've been attacked. They've not physically, but verbally.
Hmm.
People just don't understand who they are. And I see something in them, and I said, well, I got to get them on the show. I think they need to tell their story, and a lot of times it's so inspirational, you know. Um, but everybody has an origin story, and so we talk about the deal maker. We talk about becoming limitless, but when did you know that you wanted to transition out of being an engineer and
Oh,
help
okay.
people.
Well, it's been a long time now. It's been since 2006. So, or somewhere in there. And it was a long time. And like so many other people, I was sort of taught to get a good degree and then work really hard for corporate America. And I kept getting promoted as an engineer and different things. And eventually, I took a job transfer to Virginia from New York State. I used to live near the Amish, like I was telling you. And
Hmm.
and then I started traveling like crazy, and we started opening factories in China and England and all over the place. I was never home. I was like a corporate. I was literally like a corporate slave. And so that company filed bankruptcy, and so I left, and I took a job running a window factory, a window and door factory. And for a while, I was up near DC running that one, and then they transferred me back to Richmond, which was great. I ended up running a factory both in Richmond and one in North Carolina, and that went really well for like 3 years. And then that whole business went belly up, and I had to lay off every single employee. And I remember, Rob, when I had to lay everybody off in North Carolina, they told me that it's hard laying people off. It sucks. I hate it. It's so much more fun to grow. But they said, Jim, when you go to lay off everybody in North Carolina, you can't stay in a hotel near the factory. And we're going to send an undercover person with a gun. And I thought, well, this whole corporate thing is way overrated. It's a true story. And so there was no incident. Everyone got laid off. Shouldn't laugh about it, but there was no like violence or anything. But things do happen. And I thought at the end of that, like I can go get another job or I'm going to figure something out. And that's when I left corporate America and I started off wholesaling houses back then to replace my income. And I was pretty motivated because I had two kids in middle school and I had to be thinking about like they're going to be going to college in a few years. And I had to figure out how to do all that. And then, like every entrepreneur, I struggled really hard for a while and then I make some progress. And then eventually, I got into some groups that really helped me in my own community. It's where I met people like Jeff Watson, and we've been friends for more than 10 years. So that was kind of the transition. It can be a little scary at first, but once you're there and you figure out what your purpose is and your why, you can make it and you can do it and you will make it if you really want it bad enough.
Yeah, you talk about layoffs, and that was me early in the 90s. I had worked for a whole string of companies, including
Mhm.
Coca-Cola. I worked for a plastic molding injection
Oh
company,
yeah, I know those very well.
and it was like, I'd stay there for a couple months. I was a low guy in the totem pole. Hey, Rob,
Yeah.
you're getting laid off today.
Hmm.
I come home, I have to tell my wife, I got laid off
Yes.
again. And all I could hear, and maybe it didn't happen, but in my mind, I could feel my friends and my family going, "What a
Yeah.
loser." And it's
Yeah.
like, and so when the opportunity came to start this cleaning business in 1995, my wife wasn't too thrilled about it because her dad was a self-employed carpenter and struggled all his life,
Right.
and she didn't want me to be in that situation where it was, no money
I
coming in.
understand. I can tell you, like when I first started in real estate, like I was going full time, and I knew I had to learn a lot, and I had to find like people that I could mentors and people that could pour into me back then, Rob. And like Cheryl and I would talk about it. Like I would want to go to Tampa. There was a group down there I really liked. And like my heart said yes, but really my checkbook said no, this doesn't make any sense. But Cheryl said to me, like, I believe it, let's go.
Mhm.
And you just do it, and the rest is
Yeah,
history.
well, that was me in 1998. Um, I went to a Joe Polish event in Tempe, Arizona, and met Dan Kennedy and met all these other
Oh
people. But
well, what
I
an
had
up.
no financial way to get there, and
Right.
luckily my brother gave me, miles to use to get me out there, and he could
That's
even
neat.
pay for the hotel. And so he was. he knew that I could succeed, and he was my younger brother.
Yeah,
And so I was like, so things have changed over 30 years, and I've done a lot of great things. But if it wasn't for, people that believed in me early on,
right,
would I still be here? Probably not. Or
right.
maybe it would have taken longer.
Yeah, that's it. All goes back to like mindset, your community, and belief.
Hmm.
And that's really a really important key. I mean, it was for me. Like if Charlotte had said like we don't really have the money to do this, you can't go. Like I don't know if I'd have made it or not.
Hmm.
It might have been slower. Best case, it would have been slow.
Well, let's talk about slower because 2024 was a very slow year for a lot of entrepreneurs, and some of them failed. Some of them went belly up.
Sure,
And so now we're in 2025, and we have this I can't say rebirth, but more confidence in the economy.
sure.
I think houses are selling faster. Interest is starting to go down. And so what's the insight? What do you
I
share
think
with
you
with
can do well
entrepreneurs?
in any market in real estate. It's just a matter of which tools you pull out of the toolbox, really.
Hmm.
If I had another crack at like 2008, I could really clean up. But a lot of people are going to be hurting because of that. I mean, that
Hmm.
was a huge transfer of wealth. I really want to see, I don't want, even though I would personally gain, I don't want to see that again. I
Hmm.
think a lot of real estate markets are pretty stable. I think Florida is got a lot of inventory growing and days on market to sell are long. So there are some markets that are shifting a bit and others that are pretty stable. Here in Virginia, we're doing pretty well.
Hmm. Yeah, I know in Lancaster, PA, that the values are starting to come down a little bit.
Hmm.
And it's probably because of the interest is also coming down. But there we had a surplus of homes that just weren't selling, and uh,
Sure.
so it's. But my neighbor's house, it was only on the market for one day.
Yeah.
It's like,
I sold a house this weekend, Rob. They had 14 showings and two offers. So it sold $15,000 over list with no inspection as is. I mean, that's a good offer. So we went ahead and sold that one this weekend. But no, I think it's important. You can diversify even within the real estate sector. Like I do a lot of lending. I love lending to real estate investors on short-term loans. You can flip, you can do rentals, and even within rentals, there's three segments. You can do traditional rentals, which I love. You can do short-term rentals, furnished like Airbnb, or you can do mid-term corporate 30-day stay to like travel nurses. So there's ways to diversify, and there are niches you can dig into if you like to.
let's reflect on Airbnb a little bit because they came in strong and everybody was
Yeah,
buying up homes just so they could rent them short term. But now a lot of communities are fighting back and they don't
they
want
are.
they don't want Airbnbs.
No, they don't. No, the hotel have a lot of deep pockets to get lobbyists, don't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think now in this market, there's some opportunities to buy some of those homes back from motivated sellers right now, like
Oh,
the
and
development
I
in
think what really
Ontario.
hurt Airbnb is people are tired of getting nickel and dimed.
Yeah,
They want to rent a property, but then the cleaning fee costs as much as
no.
the rental.
Yeah, yeah. No, you got to watch that. But think of it this way: like I've got some short-term rentals. So let's say there's a family of five, and they maybe have to get two hotel rooms at $200 a night. That adds up, or $300 a night. That adds up pretty fast too.
Hmm.
So I think there's some opportunities for savings when you have a little bit larger family or like to travel with pets and things like that.
Oh yeah, I mean I've rented them before. I've rented
Yeah,
Airbnb in Texas and Florida and France.
but I
And
do think there's Airbnb people that jumped onto that trend really fast without really knowing what they're doing,
mhm,
and they took lines of credit on their primary house to buy it, and then over the last 3 years, those rates have like doubled, and all of a sudden their payment may have gone from $1,200 a month to $2,500 a month or 3,000, and all of a sudden now they're upside down.
Mhm.
So there's that happening as well in that niche.
Well, let's talk about overextending. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do that. You
Yeah.
know, when I got into the cleaning business, I made it a point not to have the equipment cost more than what I was making. And although a lot of cleaners would spend gobs of money on huge equipment and trucks and whatnot, I see the same thing in rentals. You want to make this house pristine and marble this and that, but it's a rental, you
Right.
know. And so you've already overspent to try to attract people, but you're not bringing in the money.
Well, you do have to watch your leverage. Leverage is a double-edged sword. I love leverage. If you're a savvy real estate investor, you can buy houses with very little of your own money. I
Hmm.
mean, that is powerful. But the way you finance them and the way that you manage them, all of it really matters greatly. And if you get over leverage, you're going to lose it all. But if you manage your leverage and you manage debt that other people pay for, you can do extremely well.
Hmm. So let's talk about the Deal Maker. Man,
Okay.
I see them. I see your pictures everywhere, and I missed the
Yeah,
opportunity to go to the one in Virginia. But this thing has morphed into
it has.
what? How many locations are there now?
Well, at the end of Dealmaker in Richmond a year ago, a couple people that attended came to me with this idea of taking our 3-day event and using it on a monthly meetup basis in their own city, which was an interesting idea. One of the hard things as an entrepreneur is to know when to say yes and when to say no, because we're always looking, there's always opportunities everywhere. So they came to us with that idea, and I said, "All right, let's try it." And that was Orlando and Raleigh Durham.
Hmm.
Um, so they started, and then all of a sudden there were like four more, and then there was a few more, and then a few more, and now we're up over 30, and we've launching like seven right now. I mean, it's a lot. Um,
Did
so
you
it
did you think
is.
that it was going to be as big as it was?
No, no, no. And as an entrepreneur, sometimes you build it as you go over the cliff. And that's been the case with Dealmaker Meetup, because literally it was started with two people's ideas. And then we found out this is a product people absolutely love. They
Hmm.
love the culture. They love the core values of integrity, transparency, generosity. And so why not let them take it back in a monthly meetup location? And now there's also a subsegment of that that's all Spanish speaking and Latino based called Nosotros. That started in Atlanta, and then it's in South Carolina, Richmond, and the newest one's coming up in Dallas right now. So it's really neat to see that as well. And hey, I'm just along for the ride, and we're building systems, we're building product to add value to all of our amazing leaders that are showing up all over the country every month. So yes, we're building it out as quick as we can.
Well, I also noticed that you embrace AI for some of this,
Yeah,
and
tremendous amount.
how has that helped, the real estate, the dealings, the entrepreneurs?
I think AI is amazing. ChatGPT is really smart. Even over like the last 4 weeks, I think it's improved.
Hmm.
I'm seeing it get better and better, like with graphics and things. And if you're not using ChatGPT or AI in some format, then you're falling behind right now. And this self-limiting belief that if you're a little bit older and you can't do it, then you're wrong. It's not hard to use. You just got to get started and going. I've been working with my inner circle group since the 1st of April. This will be week 5 this week on how to use ChatGPT, and it's been amazing. The feedback I've got has been outstanding. Like we're using it to stress test our deal flow, help us find better deals. I've created a couple custom GPTs called Len Pro and Rental Pro. It is really good at like math and writing.
Hmm.
Um, and it's an amazing assistant that everybody should be using right now.
Yeah, and I've said this before, AI is just a tool.
It is.
And if you can learn to master the tool, then it makes life so much easier. But people are like, well, Rob, what do I do with it? Well, one, you can't give it generic,
Yeah,
re
your prompts do matter.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there's just so much we can do. I think there's a real need for an AI-based real estate investing training course that I would love to do, but I've got to really watch my time as well, so I'm not committing to do that today. But just going through it on my weekly Zoom with my inner circle group, I know like it's powerful. And
Hmm.
people are seeing like the light bulb go off for them. And
Yeah.
older people too, like 60, 70 plus, are starting to use it. And they're like, this is an amazing assistant.
Right. And my very first property that I bought, and this was going back into the 90s. I gave the person, I had just switched jobs and I wasn't an entrepreneur at that moment. But I said to the person, I said, look, I got $3,000 I can give you as down payment. You carry the
Love it.
mortgage for a year, and then we'll switch you over to a proper mortgage. And they hemmed and hawed about it for a while. And then 30 days later, they came back, let's do it.
That's
And,
awesome.
and, and because they couldn't sell the house,
Right,
you know, and I look at today's markets and houses are selling within a day or two.
right.
And sometimes you can't do the deals that I used to do. However, I think that we still have to remember that people are still desperate to sell a home, and you can be creative. And
Yeah,
I
and I
just
think
think,
there are people that inherit houses, people that are hoarders, people that I mean, I just bought two hoarder houses in the last 60 days, so that's on my mind. People that have so much stuff in their house that they don't want to list with the realtor because
mhm,
they're embarrassed, or because a landlord who is really burned out, who doesn't know what they're doing, can't
mhm,
collect rent, and their tenants are tearing the place up. We call that a burned out landlord, or some of my best sellers. And they can't sell the house through traditional manners very easily. They have problems to solve. And I love the fact that you did seller financing on that. I
mhm.
always say, as an investor, you got to either have one of two things: wholesale price or wholesale terms. And if you have one of the two, you can make a good deal. But we as real estate investors don't buy houses as 99% of the market does.
Right.
We don't need realtors. We don't need banks. We just need people with problems that we can solve.
Yeah, I've used realtors, I've used,
So about
lawyers.
my son-in-law is a realtor, so
Here's the problem, and maybe this is because I was in a cleaning service. I had a cleaning service for 19 years, and a lot of the people that referred me were realtors, but
of
out
course.
of all the realtors, there was probably only 1 or 2% that were really good at what they do. All the rest were cheap. They were in
Right.
and out of the
Right,
field,
right.
and it was just, oh, I guess I'll just try this for a while and see if it
There's a
works.
lot of part-time realtors. A really great realtor is well worth every penny you ever pay them.
Yeah,
But you got to get the right. It's like any other person on your team. You got to have the right person. And that's true whether it's a realtor, a contractor, your legal team, whatever it is. Like you got to go after the best and the brightest.
well, let's talk about the best and the brightest because you've seen a lot of people come through your courses, through Deal Maker, through every, and I'm sure that a lot of them are very brilliant. However, the majority probably don't take action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what holds most entrepreneurs behind is they think, oh wow, this is great on paper, but I'm not going to do anything for it.
Right.
And so, I see Jeff doing wonderful things, Kim doing wonderful things, but they've all taken action.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jeff's incredibly smart. He's one of the smartest guys I know.
Hmm.
Jeff Watson. Shout out to you, Jeff. Yeah, there's a big difference. Like you've got to be willing to get out there and do something.
Hmm.
You have to do something. But I think it starts with first with understanding what your goals are. And once you have your goals, then you can figure out what you need to do. But then you've got to have the guts to go do it.
Yeah,
Once
and,
you
and, and I think sometimes when we get older, when we have kids and grandkids, we don't take the risks we used to do when we
know,
were
right.
younger.
Yeah,
But
you're probably right. I mean, I've, I live in a risk business, so that's something I manage on a daily basis, whether I'm doing loans
Hmm.
to real estate investors or buying really beat up houses owned by hoarders. So I
What do you do in
definitely
that
live in a
situation?
risk business.
What do you do with hoarders? I mean, I've seen these movies,
Yeah,
and I've gone into homes where junk is everywhere, but you look at that and going, oh my goodness, it's going to cost 10,000 bucks
it
just to
could
get
be
rid of this
challenging
shit.
because you can't see the house.
Right.
You can't. I mean, I bought some where people were. I mean, they were like there was like a little pathway, and then they sleep in the bathtub. So you can't make this stuff up. We bought two recently. One was from an elderly couple whose house was a disaster, and they just literally couldn't live in the house anymore. They were too old and too bad a condition to do it. Right after we bought the house, the husband died. So, all you can do is sort of plan for the worst in those cases because you can't see anything.
Hmm.
You can't see the floor. You can't see where the floor intersects the wall. You don't know if there's termite damage, structural issues. Like you really you can't see much. So you got to plan for the worst.
Wow.
But they're great deals when you get them if you do that.
But,
It's just a lot of work, tremendous
yeah,
amount of work.
yeah. And I think that discourages a lot of people from, they'll think, well, this should be easy. I don't want to do hard work.
Yeah, not the case. You got to be willing to do it. You got to have a good team. You don't have to do it yourself. You just have to lead a good team.
So how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go?
Well, you can check out elitedealmakers.com. Our next 3-day event that Jeff and I are doing together is in Dallas in October. It's elitedealmakers.com/Dallas. It's a 3-day event on private capital. Can't think of anybody else I would want to do that with than Jeff Watson. It's going to be great. Or just check out any of the Dealmaker meetup groups on Facebook or email me, Jim at elitedealmakers.com.
And there you go, folks. And for everybody listening, I wear this shirt a lot better than yesterday because I always want to improve on what I'm doing. Some days I don't want to, but you got to get out of bed. You got to take action. And if you want to take massive action and become limitless, follow Jim and go to an elite deal makers meeting, an event, and network and experience everybody that's there because they're going to have stories that are going to and hopefully enlighten you. So I want to thank you, Jim, for being here, and I'm losing my
Thanks for
voice.
having me.
And we'll see everybody on the next episode. Adios.
Thank you very much.